If your fingers just won't cooperate when you're learning fingerstyle blues, you are not alone, and weak fundamentals are at the heart of the frustration for so many players. So in this lesson, we're going to take a look at 3 core movements that you can train to help you build control and confidence in your fingerpicking. If you're just getting started, it helps to have these exercises front and center, and that's why I created the Fingerpicking Quick Start, which you can download at the link in the description. It will help guide you through these core fundamental movements step by step. Now, let's get into the lesson. Perhaps the most difficult skill in all of fingerstyle acoustic blues, and probably the most important skill, is to get control of your thumb. It's responsible for keeping the timing and really just laying down that nice solid groove that we place everything on top of. So if you need to train it up for the first time or just keep your thumb in shape, here's an exercise that'll help you do it. This trains what we call dead bass or steady bass. The thumb is pumping out a quarter note rhythm, and ideally you'll practice this along with a metronome and sync your thumb up to the click, and then off camera I'm tapping my foot right along with each one of these bass notes, which is just the open 6th string while I have an E major fretted on the fretboard. And just to keep the exercise a little more than just this open 6th string, which is tough enough, we're just going to brush up through the top 3 strings, and you can change this up to fit whatever skill level you're comfortable with right now. But what I'm doing is dropping down that little finger on the 2nd string 3rd fret to get a little E7 in there and just create a little bluesy melody. Keep it interesting. Now this is the base layer skill for a lot of acoustic blues, but we can keep going and train even more control from our thumb. Let's switch over to a C major chord and we'll practice what we call alternating bass. Now, alternating bass just means that we do that thumb bass along with that quarter note rhythm, but we're going to change the strings. Here we're just alternating between these 2 strings, 5 and 4, under our C chord. And we can get a little more complicated with this and do a 3-string alternation. But before we do that, we can see this 2-string alternation on different string sets. So if we go back to E, here's a common one. Open 6th string and then the 4th string under the E chord. So that's an E note. Let's go back to C. And again, we can do some brush ups on top there, 5-4, 5-4. But we could also drop down and play the 6th string. So we have a 5-4-6-4 alternating bass line. If you work on these 3 levels of thumb picking, you'll have a whole lot more thumb control. And that's the goal here, right? We've got our dead bass, where we just play along with the quarter note on 1 string, or we alternate with 2 strings, whether that's 5-4, maybe even 6-4. But then finally, we can do a 5-4-6-4 3-string alternation. Once you have at least a little bit of thumb control, it's time to start bringing on the fingers. And I think a really good way to do this is to have them work together as a group, but not necessarily pick when the thumb picks. We're going to expand our E to E7 exercise here to put this into action. So you can see the thumb has an alternating bass line job here. It's going 6th string, 4th string, then 5th and 4th. Those are the quarter notes keeping the beat for us. Again, practice this with a metronome. But what's different about this is instead of strumming up through the top 3 strings, I'm plucking them simultaneously. So I'm dedicating my index finger to the 3rd string, my middle finger to the 2nd string, and my ring finger to the 1st. And basically playing through that same idea of weaving in some E major and E7 sounds. Again, the E7 just by dropping down the D note on the 2nd string. And when we go on and off, we can get that little melody happening while moving through that 6-4, 5-4 bass line. Now that we have our bass line underneath everything and we know how to get our 3 picking fingers to work together as one group, now it's time to start separating those fingers. That gives us bass line, the ability to play some chords, and now to pluck out individual notes for licks and melodies. Let's take a look at how we might expand this pattern, this exercise, to help us train this core movement. Let's start by removing the thumb here so that we can just focus on the fingers. What we're going to do is fret an E major on the fretboard, and we're going to start by just playing the open 6th string and then letting the thumb just kind of rest, right? Not do anything else. But we are going to set up with that finger to string dedication we talked about before with the index, middle, and ring on strings 3, 2, and 1. So after that bass, we're just going to play through those strings in order. And if you're brand new at this, you don't even have to pay too much attention to musical time yet, right? We want to train the movement, we can put it in time later. The next thing we'll want to do is be able to play that exact thing, but with a dead bass. So this is where we get to bring on some of that thumb control training and just thump out with our 6th string. And let's start on the and of 1. That's going to further drive this point of separating out our fingers, because we're going to separate the fingers, for the most part, from the thumb even. And then if you can do it, we can shift into an alternating bass line and do the same thing. We talked about thumb control and finger separation, and we've taken a look at a few ways to train those movements. But now let's put those movements into action. I'm going to play through a short example that brings together the elements that we've just covered. And of course, I'm going to add a little bluesy shuffle feel to it that puts us in that country blues vein. If you're a premium member, you're going to have access to the tab and the interactive tab player for this on the lesson page. Just look for Tuesday Blues number 501. The thing is, learning these movements and even getting really good at them is just the start. There's something else that is huge in your playing, and without it, your blues just isn't going to groove. So watch this video next to make sure that that doesn't happen to you. I'll see you there. Until then, practice smart and play on.